Hey, what's up, everybody? Dr. Taylor, Aspire Chiropractic. Today, I want to talk to you about chiropractic, but it's something a little bit more, a little more in depth, a little bit more beyond what the regular person walks in the door for us to help with, or even what the more regular person just kind of knows about chiropractic. So, what is chiropractic, right? Chiropractic. Chiropractic, coming from the Greek meaning done by hand. And what is it that is done by hand? Long story short, we move a bone, okay? So if we've got our skull up top here, we've got our spinal column, we've got 24 individual bones in there, right? And those things can bend and move and twist, allowing us to bend and move and twist. But this structure here between the spinal column and the skull, it's so important. It's really the only two things in the body that encase our organ entirely in bone, right? So we've got our rib cage that protects our heart and our lungs and our guts and things like that. But it's a cage, right? It's not a complete case. So the spinal cord and the brain are so important. They're the only two organs that are entirely encased in bone, right? Now, when you come to a chiropractor, more often than not, you come here for neck pain, back pain, and headaches, which makes total sense because the spine and the body in and of itself is this tensile structure. We've got our skull right there. We've got our spine here, shoulders, pelvis, right? This whole thing it provides structure, but it provides structure with the aid of all the muscles, right? So if we got muscles that run up and down our spine, right? They're called paraspinal muscles. We've got muscles that run out to our shoulders, like our lats or our traps, things like that. We've got muscles that go from the crest of our hips up into our rib cage, one called the QL. Obviously, we've got our big glute muscles here, right? Muscles in the neck. We've all got that little knot that comes on right there. These muscles hold this whole thing together, right? You take away the muscles and the whole thing just falls apart. You guys ever seen that episode of Family Guy where they get some wishes and someone's about to get into a fight with Peter and Peter's guy's like, I'm going to break your bones. And Peter's like, oh, I wish I had no bones. And then he just squishes out into a blob, okay? Literally the same thing would happen. So it's the muscles that provide the tension that support the structure. Now, tension, that's where I'm going with this whole thing. Trust me, it'll all make sense in a bit. One of the tenets of chiropractic, one of the philosophical standards of chiropractic is based on something called tone. Now, tone is basically, you can look at it at muscles. Chiropractic looks at it at the nerve level, right? The tone of the nerves. If the nerves have the right tone, or think of it maybe as tension, if that's something easier for you to wrap your mind around, then it will conduct the message from the brain into the body better. Just like a guitar, just like a cello or a violin. Those strings have to be on a certain amount of tension for the note to sound right. So if we've got our brain up top here, coming out of our brain is our spinal cord. This is it going down the spine and coming off the cord, going into the body is every single nerve, right? Every nerve in your body comes off your spinal cord, save for the 10 cranial nerves. Now, back to what we were saying at the beginning. This whole thing is encased in bone. Just like that. Why is it encased in bone? Because whoever designed our body, God, Jesus, Buddha, Allah, whomever you want to believe, decided this thing was really important. So we need to protect it. Now, when these bones bend, shift, move, twist, they can put tension on the spinal cord. They can put pressure on the nerves. If you put pressure on the nerves, tension on the spinal cord, it's going to affect wherever that nerve goes. So we talked about the muscle tension, things like that, but let's say this nerve goes to the lungs, because you've got nerves that go to the lungs. If you've got tension on those nerves, how are those lungs going to react? Poorly. What symptoms might you experience? Asthma, shortness of breath, trouble clearing all the gunk in the air. If you're in Texas right now, cedar pollen is running rampant. Where else do those nerves go? They go to your heart. Where else do those nerves go? They go to your intestines. Where do the nerves in the low back go? They go to everything from the belly button down. And I do mean everything. Pressure on those nerves down there can affect that as well. Going up top here into the brain, an adjustment of the spine will affect brain function. Fact. No doubt about it. Because this whole thing is connected. If we're going to take these bones here, I'm going to turn it on end. So now we're looking at it from the very top. Here's the top of the body of the vertebra. Here's a piece coming back like that. There's a hole right in the middle where your spinal cord is. There's this thing coming out the side. These are called TPs, or transverse processes. And then there's this little spinous process coming in the back. So that is that. That is that. And right here in the middle, where that spinal cord is, that's where that thing is protected. So now what we're going to do is we're going to zoom in on that. So if we go back here, we draw just for orientation, TP, spinous process, TP, body of the vertebra, central canal, and then we're going to put our spinal cord in here. Just like that. Now let's just make this thing bigger. This is that. This is your spinal cord. It's going out towards you, up into your brain. So what we've got in here is this gap, right? This thing here, this is filled with cerebral spinal fluid. Like I told you, we're getting into it today. And then there's these little pieces. There's a thing coming off the spinal cord all throughout and every level of the spine called the meninges, part of something called the dura mater, Latin for tough mother, that anchors that spinal cord in the middle of that canal. So it's not banging around in here. What is a concussion? A concussion is when your brain bangs around inside your skull. Brain's super important, spinal cord super important. So this thing anchors it in the middle. So if we go back, remember we're looking at it from the top down, top of the vertebra. If we go back and we look at this thing in the spinal column, we've got all these bones here like this. What if one of these bones is shifted out here? And what if another one is shifted back there? Then that once nice smooth path of that spinal cord gets kinked. And again, that thing attaches to the brain all the way up here. So if you've got a bone out of alignment in your spine, putting tension on the spinal cord, tugging on the brain, what are some symptoms you might have? Obviously, you could have headaches, you could have tension, you could have brain fog. You ever wake up or just go throughout the day and you've got this kink right by your shoulder blade, but by the end of the day, you just end up at home and you don't even know how you got there? You forgot the drive. Did I stop at that stoplight? Was the railroad crossing gate down? I don't know. It says brain fog the whole time. What if it's coming from your low back? What if it's coming from your low back because your L4 is out of alignment, putting tension on your spinal cord all the way down here, that's tugging on that spinal cord, pulling your brain literally into what's called the foramen magnum, big hole in the base of your skull. You don't believe me, you don't have to, it's still true. If anyone out there watches any kind of sports, if you've ever heard of a show on ESPN called 30 for 30, watch the one on Jim McMahon. Famous quarterback from the Chicago Bears, 1985. They did a terrible music video. But it was football in the 80s. He got beat up all the time. He got concussion symptoms. Nobody could help him until he went to a chiropractor. Chiropractor took a look at his skull, took a look at the junction between skull and C1, and realized it was off. So he adjusted the skull and he adjusted C1. So if we've got the brain up top here, that spinal cord coming down like that. Watch the show. Jim McMahon said he got adjusted. And as soon as he got adjusted, it felt like a toilet bowl flushed. Because all that tension was taken off of his brain. All that fluid that surrounds and protects the brain and spinal cord was allowed to move and circulate again. All the stuff that he had gone through in the 80s, taking the Bears to the Super Bowl, that had been with him up to 2012, went away with chiropractic adjustment. So everyone knows, to bring this thing full circle, chiropractic is great at neck pain, back pain, and headaches. But sometimes neck pain, back pain, and headaches aren't necessarily going to be mechanical in nature. It might not be that you're fixing 40-hour-a-week problems. It might not be that you've got text neck or whatever the hell that is. It literally could be caused by a bone out of place, putting tension on your nervous system directly. So if you've got things like that going on and you've tried everything, you've tried over the counter, you've tried stretches, you've tried yoga, you've tried lacrosse balls and all this kind of stuff and nothing's working, walk right through this door right here at Aspire Chiropractic. We're ready to help you when you're ready to be your best, naturally.